Take me out to the ball game.
And now, Twitch It Dolphin Media presents The Joys of Mudville, a look at the current state of baseball. Now here are your hosts, Scott McIntyre, Andy Tom Chesson, and James Christopher. And we're back here on Joys of Mudville. The guys are back. Scott, what is it? So it's trade deadline fever, which means I go into a depression because I'm always afraid the Astros will be like, yeah, it's fine, even though they've never done that under the current leadership model. But Scott, for the like you guys are being mentioned as maybe the front runners for Soto.
That's what makes me nervous, because the Cardinals never spend a lot of money at the deadline to get someone. But, you know, like I've told you in a previous conversation, there's something different about Juan Soto. Juan Soto is the type of guy that doesn't come along all that often. And if you're looking at the Cardinals lineup and you've got to you've got to face Juan Soto, Nolan Arenado, and Paul Goldschmidt in some order in the same inning. Oh my gosh, you would have a lot of stress as a pitcher.
You would.
I think Soto's a once in a I think he's almost a generational.
Yeah, I think
he really is,
regardless of his age. Andy,
well, and really all you're buying of the Cardinals, I mean, other than three postseason runs, is the ability to woo him for 2 seasons and 3 months. Because I don't think anybody that Juan Soto gets traded to, if he even gets traded, because there's not really a need for the Nationals to trade him. They might get more in the offseason than they would get at the All-Star break. There's a conceivable notion that could happen. But let's say he's traded. He's not signing an extension with anybody, because why would he?
Right.
Well, he might. He probably wouldn't. You're right. He probably would not. But you can control that for a little bit more. Also, if you're the Cardinals,
isn't he already making $17 million in arbitration though? I mean, he's got 3 years of arbitration where that number is just going to he'll be 25 next year.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why people, he turned down $440 million.
Right.
Yeah, he did, because his market value is probably going to be higher than that come year 2 or 3 of his contract, much less year 5, 6, or 7. If the players, if you want Soto's able to come to the Cardinals right now, you got Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright, and Albert Pujols on your roster. I mean, what 3 better ambassadors for the team in the city of St. Louis can somebody have than those 3 guys? So that's why if the Cardinals are going to pull this trigger.
Remember we did all this.
It's a good trigger.
Remember we did all these mental gymnastics last year with Correa, Andy. Remember that? It'd cute to not watch it happen. Hey, Andy, I want to talk about some potential trade targets, but the Yankees did trade for Benintendi. I presume he will get vaccinated.
Oh, he's already said. I'll get back. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Vaccinate me twice. I don't care.
Yeah. A lot of our friends that are big parts of Yankees Twitter don't feel like this is the move that puts them over the top. I tend to agree with them. Where are you on that?
I mean, I think it makes them better. I don't know that it fixes their outfield problem, but if ostensibly, and I don't know how they shuffle the players they have, but if you're going to dump Gallo out of your everyday playing rotation, or maybe from the roster, because I know that's the hope of Yankees fans, but if you're going to dump Joey Gallo and replace him with a 300 hitter, why wouldn't you do that? That makes them better. I think he's a better defensive player than anybody they have, probably except for Judge. They've also got some questions with Stanton.
Easy for you to say.
No, not at all. I can't even say the word yesterday. Bigly. All
my travels were so far away.
If you're worried about Stanton coming back because he now has some sort of inflammation of some sort of joint that, there's some worry that he's not going to get better. He might return to play, but it's not necessarily going to get better. I don't know that they improved anything. I also don't think the Yankees are done by any means. I don't think they're in the Juan Soto market, because I don't think the player, Anthony Volpe, that the National would rightly want, they're going to give up.
Yeah.
So I think that takes them out of it if it's a summer deal. But I think the Yankees will continue to make moves because Brian Cashman regardless of his words, is feeling a lot of pressure to beat the Astros before they play the Astros.
Yeah, even it was an article, I think, in the New York Post that said that the Yankees have a Jose Altuve problem, not a roster problem. You talked about Joey Gallo, and I'm gonna do a quick shout out to Orange Men at Stark5521 on Twitter. He's a Yankee fan, but he lives in Houston. He said, you should see some of the trades people are posting for Joey Gallo on Yankee Twitter. I mean, get him out of New York without having to pay someone to take him, and I'm dancing in the street. I mean, it cracks me up that Gallo ended up being everything that we saw him be 19 times a year when he played for the Rangers.
Yeah, and it's it was interesting because I think an Astros fan, because that's primarily what I'm following on Twitter, posted a take from Frankie, one of the louder Yankees fans on Twitter, talking about that he thought Gallo with the Yankees coaching and pedigree could be a batting champion. And I remember when he posted that originally when they acquired him last year, and all of us that got to watch Joey Gallo come into your stadium and hit 500-foot home runs, but also strike out 7 times in a game somehow, even though he only got 5 at bats, struck out 7 times. That's not him. He's a 160 hitter. His best season, I think he hit 230. That's the best that's the best. And
Yeah.
Yankees fans' arrogance. Oh no, we'll fix him. And just the pride of playing in Yankee Stadium under the shadow of Babe Ruth's testicles will just make him better by osmosis. And I stand by that until he strikes out the first time, and then he's the biggest bum that you screw him.
Wow, that got dark for a second, Scott.
That went deep.
That went off.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
just coach off the rails.
Yeah.
Um,
The shadow of Babe Ruth's testicles is something I'm not sure I ever quite appreciated as much as I do right now.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Cast
about
a
renaming.
long shadow, a lot of girth.
I think I'm gonna rename the show to that.
The shadow of
Ruth's
sorry.
testicles. Scott, something I read that I thought was interesting is that the Angels are in an interesting place with Shohei Ohtani, and that the 3 options that they have are to do nothing with him, let him leave as a free agent after next year, I think, and get the compensatory pick, or pay him what would amount to be about $63 million a year is what people are forecasting he's worth, or trade him. We'll go with Scott first. In a universe where you think the Angels actually trade Ohtani?
Sure. Yeah, if they think that there is, excuse me, bad timing, bad sneeze. If they think there's a universe where there's no way he's going to re-sign with them and they only have him for 1 more year period, which I'm not sure that's the case that exists, but if that does exist, then they absolutely have to get him off the books. Now, I'm not saying they would trade him this year. It might be next year is probably much more likely than right now. The Angels also have to look and decide whether they plan on being competitive next year for real, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not one of those instances. Say, hey, we're going to be good this year. See, No, they really have to do it. They really have to take a look and take a look at the Astros and say, can we beat them? Can we get to where they're at? Because the Astros are the cream of that division. If they can get there, then no, you don't trade him. You do try to get the guy into the playoffs, get him some time in the playoffs, let him see what the postseason is about. Maybe get things rolling there in Anaheim. But as it stands right now, that's not going to happen. And if that's not going to happen, then trade him somewhere. Trade him to Seattle or to the Cubs or somewhere that he would become a big name, that people would gravitate toward him, and get yourself a boatload of prospects to build yourself back up. Hey, trade him to Baltimore. Baltimore's got plenty of prospects, and now they're all around 500. They're not that far away. Go to Baltimore. I don't know. When's the last time Baltimore was buyers?
Andy, what are your thoughts?
Baltimore might be buyers right now.
I think they might be. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, when was the last time we saw that?
I think Artie Moreno has a history of doing really weird things when it comes to contracts and tying himself up to massive deals, even though there's no real return on them. And so if there is a path to sign Shohei Ohtani and it costs $50 million a year, Artie Moreno will pay $50 million a year for Shohei Ohtani. The real argument, real conversation gets into should he pay that much? Because I think Ohtani's the only draw that the Angels have. I love Mike Trout. I wish Mike Trout on my team, but Mike Trout this morning told people, or I guess last night, that he has a pretty rare back condition that he's just going to play with, and he's probably going to return this season.
Yeah,
And
I think
we've heard that about Mike Trout the last few seasons, where it's just a strained calf. He's going to return this season, only shut down. He's 31 years old, about to be 32. The runway on Mike Trout's getting shorter and shorter. So if the Angels need a star player and need that star power, they have it there. It's just a matter of how much Artie Moreno is willing to pay. The other variable in that is, where are the Angels playing in 3 years? Are they playing in Anaheim? Are they moving to a different city? Because historically, owners of new teams would rather have a whole bunch of young players, so they're not dealing out a whole lot of payroll. Because I'm assuming Artie Moreno would also be selling a team if he's moving markets.
I don't know if he moves markets though. What makes you think he's going to move?
Well, the news that came out that they broke, that them and Anaheim mutually agreed to get them out of the lease for the Big A.
Okay.
And the rumor around that is that Disney wants the land.
Yeah.
Okay, but do you think they leave the Los Angeles market?
Yeah, I actually do, and here's why. This is not about and it actually dives into this antitrust thing that's happening that I was going to try to bring up, but the concept that it's all about TV dollars and you have the LA market. Why not move the Angels to a market you don't have? I think it's exactly why the A's are going to leave. You already have the Bay Area with San Francisco. Where don't you have? Vegas. I absolutely could see that happen because you want to spread out that ability to make prime TV money.
Yeah, I guess where I was looking at it also, the angle I totally agree about the A's, but the A's are 30th in attendance in the league, right? Like 400,000 people have shown up all year to watch an A's game. Seriously.
And they got to see a sweep this week.
All 18 of them.
But if you look at the Angels, they're 11th in the league in attendance. So from an attendance standpoint, even though they haven't been competitive in years, there's still people coming out, is all I'm saying.
Attendance is not even a sliver. I mean, it's a small sliver of what they care about these days. Like, it's about TV dollars. It's about TV money. I mean, maybe they're not leaving, but I think it's at least a 50-50 chance that they're moving on. Andy?
Yeah.
And honestly, I can see a scenario where it comes down to which team gets to Las Vegas first between Oakland and Anaheim. Because that's the prize if you're going to stay on the West Coast. And I think Major League Baseball needs teams on the West Coast. They don't need, Charlotte and Nashville, I think, are prime markets and will probably get teams. Montreal might get a team again someday. But they really need, from a balance standpoint and the scheduling standpoint, to keep that team, both those teams out West somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's Las Vegas and then
Portland. Yeah.
And I honestly, if you could get the Rangers and Astros ownership to accept whatever payout this would cost, you'd put San Antonio, Austin in there, and they'd be right under Las Vegas from a standpoint of fan interest, money, everything else.
Pop that thing in New Braunfels and say, come on, baby.
Yeah. The San Marcos. Hell, the Angels don't play in Los Angeles right now.
Yeah.
They don't play in San Antonio or Austin.
And Vegas feels like, the glitzy Angels of Las Vegas, or whatever you want to call them. That you could see that. You could see. I definitely think one of those two teams
10 years ago
ends up in Vegas.
Victoria's Secret's Angels of Las Vegas, and that'd been great.
Yeah, they missed out on that. I actually think you plop a team between Austin and San Antonio, and now use the name Texas because you're representing two large communities. But we'll move those guys to Oklahoma. The Trout injury is interesting. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I remember when Michael Irvin had a rare back spinal column thing, and they said he was coming back and he never did. Now football's obviously different than baseball, but it does seem like, Scott, like to Andy's point, he's in his 30s, which is starting to get old for a baseball player.
Yeah, and it's not like he's been healthy his entire career up until now, right? Um, so not knowing enough about what a rare back condition is, but I've never known
Um,
anybody with a back condition that remained a top athlete for any
I
length
think
of time, whatever.
Andy's efforting some information.
Yeah, costovertebral dysfunction at T5. It's a pretty
So
rare condition. One of the most well-known spine surgeons in the country said, if not the world, doesn't see a lot of these. For it to happen to a baseball player, we just have to take consideration what he puts himself through with hitting, swinging on a daily basis to get prepared. Basically, he can't move his back the way he needs to. And when they're the way they're describing rare is that there's not really a treatment for it, which lines up with what Trout is now saying is, well, I'll just play with it. But
yeah, and to get cortisone shots whenever he can also, right?
but that makes him probably less a center fielder and more of a first baseman DH going into the future. And if you're a first baseman DH, okay, great. Where does Otani play if you keep those guys together? Because
You
doesn't
pitch
really
him
have
every day. Just pitch him every day.
every day.
Pitch him
We could
every
Bugs Bunny
day.
him. Let's Bugs Bunny him. What
Teach him a knuckleball.
All
Scott
pull
just
him
keeps
out.
rolling them out there, right, Scott?
Give him throw knuckleballs with your left arm
Hey.
and fastballs with your right. You know, just
To be
whatever it
fair,
takes, brother.
if he's getting $63 million a year in salary, maybe he needs to play two positions.
So
Just
Scott
saying.
wants him to be amphibious, is what you're saying, Scott.
He is. He needs to be amphibious. That would be the that's the
Ooh,
The,
the
you know-
Atlantis Angels.
Yeah.
yeah. So
There
no,
we go.
I've totally diverted us from where we should be. No, so back if you think about, there are great athletes throughout sports that have succumbed to back injuries. Larry Bird is the first person that people think of. Fred Couples was a major winner. You know, played for University of Houston.
The
Great
aforementioned
golfer.
Michael Irvin.
Aforementioned Michael Irvin is another. Guys with back problems have to do special things to be able to play. If you remember, Larry Bird's back was so bad, he would come to the bench and lay down on the wooden floor in place of sitting down because it was more comfortable that way. And then they'd bring him back in. I can't imagine Mike Trout just laying down in the dugout just so his back will get, you know, he's okay to go back out onto the field. I think he's broken down many times throughout his career. I think his injuries have stolen some of the greatness that Mike Trout really would have brought to the game. I do think legitimately the best player in the game for a long time, and probably still is when healthy. When healthy is the problem.
I mean,
and
heck,
if
guys,
you're dealing with, I've always said back problems and tooth problems, they can be very small in size and they can bring you to your absolute knees.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, just, you know, we got this really awesome new outdoor TV stand that the TV raises out of it, you know, perfect for baseball playoffs or college football or whatever. And
On my way, I'll be there.
I pulled a muscle lifting that thing 2 days ago and it hurts to roll over. So I cannot imagine doing something, you know, actually physically demanding with your back. Andy?
Why I buy all my furniture from IKEA. It's not made of real wood. It's not heavy. You can throw that crap around. You can break it. Just buy another one. It's not expensive.
Yeah, I think what Jim's saying there is that, Andy, he's trying to put you and I in a Mortal Kombat type of situation for who would be the replacement host if Jim was placed on the physically unable to perform list for some reason.
That's a fair statement, a thing that we all need to consider. You know, the interesting thing about Trout is his counting numbers aren't great for somebody who's played, I guess, parts of 12 years. Let's say he doesn't come back this season, which is based on what I'm reading is kind of, yeah, we're going to come back and play, but he got a cortisone shot a week ago. There's been no reaction. And they leaked the news about the rare back condition after the cortisone shot hasn't given him any relief. That's concerning.
Right.
But, you know, I assume he'll come back. He'll play 5 more seasons. He's only at 330 home runs. And he's averaging the last 3 seasons. Well, I can't really count 2020. Played 36 games last year. He's only played 80 games so far this year. He's missed time in several seasons in a row, only 134 in 2019. His continued health, he's going to be one of these interesting cases when you start talking about Hall of Fame numbers. If he doesn't have the counting stats, even though he's the best player in the game for probably the last, 8 of the last 10 years.
We lost Andrew.
think he said it.
Same
I
as,
think he left it. a
best
good-
player who
good
hasn't
point.
played in the playoffs since 2014.
Yeah, well done. Well
Andy,
done.
you
did
you
great.
you froze on us and you froze like
You glitched and you froze.
Good.
You're like,
You're-
and so what do you
like,
guys
I
think
don't know.
about? Yeah.
Just go with that. Then nothing I said made sense.
No idea.
No, it really does make sense about whether he's going to have enough numbers at the end of the day to make the Hall of Fame. I think back though, guys. I cannot help but think this whenever we talk about Trout. Had this been 30 years ago, they'd just shoot him full of painkillers and
yeah.
he'd go on out. I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah.
this guy would have just had needles going into his back, and he would have been out there playing, and probably his hat size would have swollen up to one size greater than it was when he started playing the game.
One of the great comparators to Mike Trout, especially early in his career, Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle probably, the suspicion is great that he played with a torn ACL for the majority of his career.
Yeah.
Played with it. And he was an alcoholic because of all the pain meds and all the stuff that's being gone through to cope with that pain. So yeah, baseball's got a great history of integrity in treating its players well. We always love to talk about that topic.
Well, we talk about 162
yeah.
games, but 162 games is a lot. That's a marathon, man. And even though you're not out there banging into guys like football or hockey or something like that, the amount of toll that takes on your body and the twist and the repetitive arm motion, if you start hurting in game 40, you've either got a fork in the road. You're either going on the IL at some point, or you're going to take something to make yourself feel better. And if you're taking stuff and it doesn't make you feel better, you're forced to come back and go on that other road. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it's just like famous manager, also tire salesman Lou Brown said, 162 games, even tough guys get aches and pains and need
Brains.
Give him the heater, Ricky.
No, you guys nailed it. I did want to do a complete random aside to Scott. For Let's Get To, we're going to be doing an episode on rodeo, and I was interviewing the head of the Belton Rodeo, and he said the only sport that's as tough on the body as bull riding is hockey. There you go.
Yeah, I would throw one other thing in there, but I completely agree with the banging around that people do. I honestly think that pro wrestling is, as often as those guys perform and as much as they're throwing their bodies around.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's the repetitive motion that guys are doing for a long time, right? That's really where they're shooting up with the painkillers. There is a price on the body. There is a reason that you have really good players that last about 3 years and they're gone because of some injury. It just happens. And unfortunately, the best player in the game is who it's happening to right now. And I think that's some of the, tying this back, if I can do a throwback to the early part, I think that's one of the concerns about signing Soto to such a long deal at the age of 23, and why it makes so much sense for other teams to want to trade for him now. Let's see what the next 2 years are going to be like before we really force that huge salary out there. Yeah, he's such an enviable trade piece right now.
Yeah.
So, going back to the trade deadline, then we had our first sort of big move. How fast, Andy, do you think it's going to get super busy? I mean, or you think we're really not going to see a whole lot of action until next Tuesday?
Monday. I assume a couple things will drop over the weekend, but these teams want to make the playoffs, but there is also the sense of public relations when it comes to this. Nobody drops big news on Friday that they want you to see. Saturday and Sunday are tough because of logistics of people traveling. What you'll start seeing Sunday is guys getting pulled from games or guys not in the lineup, and social media going nuts because, oh my God, Jose Siri's not in the lineup. That's me wish casting.
You're keeping you keeping close eye on the Space Cowboys, my friend.
Right.
I like it.
That's wish casting a little bit, but if Josh Bell's not in the lineup, because there's 5 or 6 teams in on him right now, if he's not in a lineup Sunday, people are going to lose their minds trying to guess where he's going. Most of the action happens on the day of the deadline, but I kind of think Monday is where you start seeing the big action start, and it'll crescendo Monday, and then we'll all sit there and pick up the pieces.
Scott, how about you? You kind of you with him on that? You think it's going to get crazy at the end?
Yeah. I'm with him on that. Although I will say that for teams that are desperately trying to maintain relevance, they'll pull the trigger on the weekend. I don't care if my news drops on a Friday or not. I do agree with Andy. Most of the time teams want that to drop on a Monday where they can be out in front of the news cycle for the week. But if it happens on Friday and I get the guy in Friday night and I can win games Saturday and Sunday with him in the lineup that I don't think I can win without him, then yeah, I mean, 2 games at this point matter.
Yeah,
it really does. You got 63 left for most teams. So yeah, it matters.
And even with the Yankees making, I guess, the first deal of the trade deadline, they don't need to make a deal now because they can bid. The Astros have some time, as the second or third best record in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers have time to make a deal. They don't have to rush into anything. Where you're going to see teams that are making early deals or the teams that get desperate and start bidding up the ante. And then it's just a matter if the sellers want to bite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals should be in that desperation mode.
If I'm selling, I don't want to start making decisions until, Sunday afternoon. I want to see what all the offers look like. And who knows if the Yankees could have been outbidded for Benintendi if they would have waited, if the Royals would have waited.
Yeah, no, it's accurate. But really, when the Yankees make you an offer, it's the Yankees. It's a pretty good offer coming anyway. And the Yankees and the Kansas City Royals have been trading since the Royals were invented. Basically. Yeah. And I do want to say the University of Arkansas product, Andrew Benintendi, going back and working on his swing in the offseason, has really come back, reinvented himself as the guy he was before. He had too many voices in his head. Excellent pickup.
I don't want a guy with voices in his head. Andy, what were you going to say?
Right. Now they're gone.
It's not just the Royals. I think it's the city of Kansas City, because the Kansas City A's used to just give players to the Yankees. They were long considered the quadruple A team for the Yankees.
Roger Maris being being one of the names. Oh, now he's frozen with his mouth wide open. That's cool. Hey guys.
We don't know what's happening.
Hey guys. Look at me. I'm standing. I can't get my mouth to shut, guys. Hey.
Andy looks like we've lost him.
Oh, he's back. There he is. He's moving again. There he is.
Oh, did I get a good freeze frame that time too?
Yeah, you were like this.
Oh, good.
We promise we won't Photoshop anything into you. Well, guys, let's wrap it up now. Then it's gonna be an interesting trade deadline. I think we're gonna see the expanded playoffs going to make it interesting. I do want to point out to you guys, when we talked about back injuries, unfortunately last night with Jessica, it did put me on the physically unable to perform list.
It's 1, 2, 3 strikes you right.